Let's take a look at Excel, Chapter 1, Independent Project 1-4. This is your start screen. As always, you'll need to download your instructions and your start file. Your instructions look sort of like this, and your start file looks like this. Per step 1, if you need to enable editing to continue, be sure to do that. Step 2 says the file will be renamed automatically to include your name, and you can see that. Just go ahead and save it to your hard drive and make sure to work from the saved copy. Then starting in step 3, it tells us we want to apply the slice theme to the worksheet. We get to themes from page layout. Here's your themes drop down, and then these are not alphabetical, so you'll just have to scroll until you find the one called slice and then click to apply it. Step 4 wants us to edit worksheet data. It says that we'll edit the title in cell A2 to display monthly sales by department. So go ahead and click on cell A2 and then type the new data. As always, you want to pay attention to spelling, spacing, capitalization, and punctuation, and be sure that you type it in exactly as it's noted in the instructions. In cell D6, it wants us to change the amount to $1,950. You can make that change. Step 5 says that we'll select the cells in A1 through F2, and once we've got that range selected, we want to click the alignment launcher. It tells us this is in our home tab, and the launchers again are these icons in the bottom of the sections of the ribbon. We can go ahead and click the one for alignment. On the alignment tab in our format cells dialog box, we want to look at the horizontal drop down, and we'll choose center across selection and then OK. Step 6 says we'll select and delete row 8. You can click on the row number to select the row, and then you can either right click and say delete. Remember, the exam simulator often does not take right clicking in the exam. You may also want to come up here to the cells group in the ribbon and come to the delete drop down and select delete sheet rows, and that would also take care of it for you. Step 7 wants us to use the fill handle to complete a series. Step A tells us to select cell B3. Step B says use the fill handle to complete the series to week 4 in column E. When you hover in the bottom corner of that cell, you'll see your cursor turn into a black plus sign. When you click and drag, that's what enables your fill handle, and you'll drag that out to column E. Step C tells us to auto-fit the columns to display the complete label. We can select those columns, and then remember, if we hover between any two columns, when our cursor changes to a double-headed arrow, we can double-click to auto-fit those. I'm going to go ahead and save. You can Control S or click on the floppy disk icon in the top to save your work. Step 8 says we want to use sum and the fill handle to calculate totals. Step A tells us that we want to come to cell F4 and use the auto sum button to build a sum function. Your auto sum button is here on your home tab. You can also find it on the formulas tab. Once that's inserted, you can press enter to accept it. Step B says to use the fill handle to copy the formula in cell F4 to cells F5 through F16. You can click and drag the way we did in the earlier step. Another way to use your fill handle is that when you hover and your cursor turns into that black plus sign, you can double click and Excel will fill down until it sees that your data have stopped. So it goes ahead and fills in that whole column for us. Step C says to delete the contents of cell F17 if you copied the formula to that cell. By using the double click method, it did copy the formula all the way down, so we can just click on cell F17 and press the delete key on our keyboard to delete that. Step D says we want to select cells B17 through F17 and then click the auto sum button. It goes ahead and populates those formulas for us. It tells us that also put the quick analysis icon on the screen. We can just press the escape key to ignore that. Step 9 wants us to format labels and values. It says that we're going to select cells A1 and A2 and increase the font size to 18. Remember, you can do that with the drop down, or you can just type the 18 in your font size box. And since we had aligned that data across to center across the cells, it takes care of changing the font in that whole range. Step B wants us to increase the row height of rows 1 and 2 to 24. We can go ahead and select those two rows, and again, you can right click and get to row height from here, or if you want to get in the habit of not right clicking for the exams, you can come again to the cells group in the ribbon, use your format drop down, and get to row height from here. And we want to change that to 24. It tells us that we want to format cells A3 through F3 as bold, and then also to increase that row height to 18. Step D says that we want to center the data in cells B3 through F3, so we can select those and click on our center button. Step E wants us to format all of the values with comma style and decrease the decimal 2 times. When it's talking about the values, it's talking about the numbers. The rest of this information would be considered labels, so we'll select that range with those numbers. We can come up here to the number section of the Home tab and press the comma style button, and then you have over here your increase and decrease decimal buttons, and we want to decrease the decimal 2 times. Step F wants us to apply the all borders format to A3 through F17. So we can select that range. Here in the font group is your borders button, and you can use the drop down and then come down and select all borders. Step G wants us to select the cells in B17 through F17 and apply the accounting number format with no decimal places. Now we can come up here to the ribbon and just press the button for the accounting number format, but that does give us decimal places. Since we want no decimal places, we can do that through our Format Cells dialog box. So you can hold down the control button and press 1, and that will open your Format Cells dialog box. You can come here to number, and you can see that accounting is selected. And then here is where we can control the number of decimal places. We'll change that to 0 and click OK. Step H says that we should auto-fit each column that does not display all data. You can see here in column F, we have some cells that just have hashtags or pound signs in them. That is an indication that there's information in that cell, but the information in the cell exceeds the column width. So it just lets you know there is something here, but it can't display all of it. Again, we can come up and auto-fit that column to be able to see all of the data. Step 10 tells us that we'll finalize the worksheet. Step A says we want to click the Insert tab and then click the Header and Footer button. When you're in your header and footer, you want to come to the right header section. You can see you've got 3 different sections in the header area. In the right header section, we want to insert the sheet name field. Here you're on your Header and Footer Tools Design tab, and you have some buttons that will allow you to insert different elements. You can click on the Sheet Name button. That's going to insert some machine code that tells Excel this is where you should put the sheet name, but it will actually insert the name of the worksheet, and we'll see that later when we preview the file. Step C tells us to go to the footer. We have a button that will let us do that as well. It switches us to the footer. In the right section of the footer, Step D says type your first name and last name. It's got it in brackets to let you know that you're not going to type it exactly as you see it. The brackets tell you you should type that data, and you're actually going to type your first name and last name. You can see in the example they type the name student name. I'm going to type my name. You should actually type your own name for that step. Step E says to click a cell in the worksheet. That gets us out of the header and footer. And then we want to come back to normal view. We can do that from the View tab and clicking the normal button. You can press Control Home to return to the top of your worksheet. And then step F wants us to center the worksheet horizontally on the page. We can come to the Page Layout tab and the Page Setup button. And then here on the Margins tab, we have options to center on page, and we can click the checkbox for horizontally and say OK. I'm going to go ahead and save those changes. Step 11 wants us to copy and rename a worksheet. Now, it does talk about right-clicking in these instructions, and for worksheet tabs, the exam simulator does usually accept right-click, so we'll use that method, but then we'll take a look at how you could do it on the ribbon as well. Step A tells us to right-click the January Sheet tab and choose Move or Copy. We want to make a copy of the sheet at the end. So first we'll say create a copy, and then we can click Move to End and say OK. And you can tell this is the copy because it puts a 2 in parentheses since it doesn't give any 2 worksheets the exact same name. We want to rename the copied sheet February, so we can right click and say Rename and type February. Step D wants us to format the February sheet tab color to dark blue accent 1. We can right click again. This time we'll come to tab color and then hover until you find dark blue accent 1 and go ahead and click that. Now, those changes could also be done from the Home tab. Here in your Format drop-down in the Cells group, you can rename sheets here, move or copy, and take care of tab color. So another way for you to do the same things we just did. Here on the February tab, Step E says to delete the values in cells B4 through E16 and then press Control Home. So we can select B4 through E16 and just press the delete key on our keyboard. We could also come here and say clear contents. That would be another way to do it. We only want to delete the values because we want to leave our formulas in place so that when we use this worksheet for the next month's information, the formulas will calculate automatically. Control Home again just sends you to cell A1 in your worksheet. Step F says to return to the January sheet. Step 12 says to preview the January sheet. We can do this by clicking the File tab that takes us into Backstage View. We can come here to the Print option, and then you'll see a preview of how your worksheet would look when it prints. And so here you can see, even though when we put that code in the header, it's going to return the value that it finds there. You can make sure also that you have your name typed in the footer and that your worksheet looks similar to what you see here. You can also compare page 3 in your instructions to see how things would look. When you're done, you can click on the arrow in the top corner to return to your worksheet. Step 13 says we want to save and close the workbook. And then step 14 says we want to upload and save the project file. You can come back to your assignment tile in SimNet. Go ahead and click on Upload My File and select your file from where you saved it. And then step 15 says you'd submit the project for grading.